Okay, welcome back to one of our newer segments. This is something that was pitted to me by my co-host. So, I should introduce myself from Saul Muerte. But my co-host, Watch It Wombats, Nick, is on board to chat us through what he put out there for us to be quite a cool segment. I thought, yes, I'm with that. I think it's really cool. I mean, at the moment, we're calling it Hidden Gems. So the idea behind it is that each of us have picked a film each that we think warrants more attention and may have sneaked people by. Yeah, so without further ado, I'll pass you over to Nick, because Nick, you came up with this gem, and and the premise behind it is that we wanted to try and make sure that neither of us had seen each other's film beforehand as well. That's really key. So yeah, I'll pass you over to Nick. Nick, what was your gem and why should I have watched it?
So mine's the 2008 film Eden Lake, which, funnily enough, I don't know if you remember, but I was stuck on something to watch, and I had a couple of horror films lined up that I thought I might give that a go. And I said, "Oh, hey Saul, have you heard of this film Eden Lake?" And you're like, "Oh, maybe, but I haven't seen it." So I thought, okay, well, if I found a film you haven't watched, and I thought that might be worth a go in itself. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, gave it a try, and I'd never even heard of it before, considering it stars Michael Fassbender and Kelly Reilly,
Yeah.
and there's some other great British actors in there before they sort of made it big.
Yes.
Um, it's really interesting because it's not supernatural. It's just more situational, and it's also just people put in strange situations and how they deal with them, which is kind of one of any type of film I love doing, especially when there's sort of a horror premise to it, makes it really interesting. So the premise is basically Michael Fassbender and his girlfriend. I say it like that because he
Yeah.
goes with the intent to take her to a lake to propose to her,
Hmm.
and it's not like a beautiful lake. It's not like one of the dams we have in Australia or one of the beautiful beaches. It's just a lake. It's just like an empty quarry, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he takes her there to propose, but then along comes some chavs or eshays or pikeys or whatever you want to call them, Neds if you're from Scotland. Basically, just young people blaring music, and that's kind of the inciting the point that changes it all when Michael Fassbender goes over, asks them to keep it down a bit, and then everything just kind of escalates there slowly on and off, and it gets a little bit farcical in places. But I just really liked the fact that some of the situations they get put into, you almost don't want to be rude sometimes, so you make decisions where you don't do certain things, and I think that's quite interesting, especially from two British guys,
Hmm.
watching our manners. The only sort of problem, it's not a phenomenal film, but it's definitely good fun.
Mm.
And look, it is slightly problematic with the sort of class issue, because you've got the
Yeah.
well-to-do couple, and then you've got they sort of refer to them as they're not looked upon well. They're just kids being obviously a bit more violent, but it kind of escalates, which makes it more interesting. But yeah, I saw that and thought, okay, well, I hope Soul likes it. So, what do you think, mate?
All right. So here's the thing, right? So I will preface too that I had heard a lot of buzz around this one, and it has been one that's been knocked around a fair bit, with plenty of discussion, which is why I was like, I need to watch it. I keep saying I need to watch it, I need to watch it. So you did throw that gauntlet down. It gave me the excuse not to watch. Like, I have to watch it now. Got to sit down and do
Yeah,
it. And I've always
good.
liked Fassbender anyway, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I think he always has compelling performances in what he delivers each time. Um, now, uh, I'm from like yourself. I'm from the UK originally, so there are elements that I recognize in some of these characters that are put forward. So
yeah.
that was kind of cool. Uh, but where I struggle is that I didn't really like Fassbender and Kelly Riley's characters. I
Yeah,
found them a bit repugnant, and I felt like, especially, and this is the point though, right? This is the thing, because the way Fassbender uh, treats the other characters in it, you kind of go, yeah, you deserve to get what you get, because you've come in with this attitude. Um, and like you said, the classist thing that you had mentioned too. So I found it really hard to connect with those two, or even kind of um, uh, identify with their plight in a way, or want to root for them to get through it. The exception is the kicker where you realize he was there to propose. Then all of a sudden, like the romantic angle and it provides a humanity to it, which could have been quite dangerous to lean into borderline cringe area, but Fassbender's got the goods to pull it off and make it believable, right? So you kind of hang in there with it. So from that point in, and by that point as well, they're fucked. Things are going south big time. And then you kind of go, oh shit. And then you kind of are connected. Yeah. So I found that kind of cool. And also the decisions that are made, they're almost like lots of uh horrible accidents, like coincidental accidents that lead into each other, and you're
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, no. Okay, because like they're all things that could have probably been avoided. And then
Yeah.
characters react, they're all reactionary, right? There's no proactive characters, they're all reactive characters. Even in the climax, it's without spoiling it for anyone who's not seen it, the very final thing is a reaction. Okay, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like so I feel like there's a lot of commentary being said, and yeah, I thank you for making me watch it, and I get why people connect with it. But yeah, I think my big thing is that I found it really hard to connect with the characters, which makes it always hard when you're trying to go through that journey. And I'm always a bit of a character person first, and then I go, right, now how do these characters fit into the plot, and is the plot then weighty enough?
Yeah.
And also I found that besides the lead chav,
Yeah.
the rest kind of could easily have gotten lost, with the exception of, now I was meant to look this up, but was that Thomas Turgoose that was in it as
Yes.
well? Yeah.
Yeah.
So exception of him, right?
He's great.
Because and I love him anyway from all
This is
the
England. And
yeah.
yeah.
So that was kind of cool. I was like, oh cool, he's in it. And he played a really interesting character too. So apart from him, like the rest of them kind of fell a bit too easily into forgettable territory, right? And blended in a bit. Um yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I agree. Like, I
yeah.
didn't put this forward as like this is a masterpiece of cinema either.
Mhm.
It's more sort of like, for me, it just felt like something I hadn't really seen before.
Yeah.
Using that element of something that's very common and very realistic of, dealing with,
Yeah.
I don't think we even have it so much here in Australia, but I remember growing up in England, and you'd always come across they just because they're kids together doesn't mean they're a
Mm.
gang, and I think
No,
that's
no,
that's
that's right. Yeah, they're just hanging
yeah.
out. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had to explain that to my son the other day. It's like he was just waiting for his mates outside the supermarket. It's like it's not a good look, but then you had to try and explain to him he didn't quite grasp why it wasn't, and it's like, well, it can seem quite threatening, I guess, but then it's like, is it really? I don't know. It's a tricky one,
Yeah.
and that's what I found just quite interesting about this is just the I don't know. I think you're right with the characters. Yeah, they weren't beautiful people that you loved or rooted for.
No.
You didn't really have. I didn't really have any horse in that race, but I was quite. I think for me, it's more interesting to see how it unfolded,
Yeah.
and what was going to happen. Then also with, you're right. You probably, I think, back knowledge of Michael Fassbender liking him, as an actor. You see that more as him rather than the character himself,
Yeah. I agree.
which
Yeah.
yeah helped a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's good fun.
Yeah. No. Well, thanks for recommending. Thanks for recommending. Now, now we get to my one, right? Now here's the thing. So like when we set up this idea, I was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of piggyback on whatever the movie you suggest to kind of try and go with something a little of a similar vein.
Mm,
All right. Now, initially was kicking around, and you and I know this, but for the audience's perspective, there was a couple of others I kicked around there. So I had like Killing Ground, which was a great Australian flick that came out 2018-ish. And is a very similar, but not with the chav element, but to a couple going
You're right, actually. Yeah,
backpacking,
that's good.
and there's a couple of interesting types that they meet on their backpacking journey.
Mm.
So there was that one, and then there was also The Strangers was coming up when I was looking up similar films as well. So the one with Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, which kind of came out where they're also in an isolated place and they get three masked people who turn up and terrorize them.
Yeah, that
I
was
felt
all
like
right.
no, I didn't want to go into that terrain. I didn't want to. I felt like that was leaning a bit too in a
Seen them
different
both as
direction.
well.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, so and then one of the other ones I posed was Straw Dogs, which was like a 1970s flick,
Classic.
and Sam Peckinpah film.
Yeah,
And
great.
there's a lot of I kind of almost wanted to talk about that one,
Yeah,
but mainly
we can do
because
that.
mainly because it's a guy under siege. But I just love the fact that it's all about morals, right? And it's like stick and integrity and sticking to your
Yeah,
integrity
yeah.
no matter what. And I like that as a subject matter. Now, but but what I actually put forward was a French film, a psychological horror called Martyrs, which was released in 2008, and the director behind that was Pascallaugier. Now, this film could easily, well, there's a lot of what is probably kind of associated with more like torture porn in its element with it, right? And I did preface this film with Nick saying it's a mind fuck. So I do warn you. But the reason I put it out there is because I feel like there's more to it than the mind fuckery that's there. There's a lot more going on. And it's one of those films that kind of people immediately put into that category. And yet over the years, I've heard a lot of people in the horror circles talking about it and saying how a great film it is. And so I was kind of betting that this might be one that had kind of fallen under the radar for you, Nick. Now I was aware that the brutality of it, and I'd only seen it once, way back. But I did rewatch it again for our discussions. And there's a lot of what initially feels like child trafficking, child kind of related stuff going on, and yeah, things of that nature, where there's a young woman basically seeking quest to get revenge against these individuals who had abducted and tortured her as a child, and her friend. She has a friend who's also a victim of abuse, who's there as well, and we pretty much go quite heavy and fast into this with this act of revenge that unfolds before it you led down this massive rabbit hole of what the fuck. And I'll leave it there for the moment and just ask you, Nick, what's your reaction to this film?
Well, look, I guess I was slightly apprehensive when I looked it up on IMDb. Didn't even read the synopsis because I wanted to go in fresh as I could.
Yeah,
But just when I looked it up and I saw down the side, it says similar films, and it had the Serbian movie, or whatever it's
yeah,
called,
yes,
that
I've been
which
in
is
film.
obviously like you're
Seven
saying,
film,
torture
yeah,
porn. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, what am I getting myself in for? And it
yeah,
just at the start, I'm like, okay, this is one film, and then it kind of changes into another film, and then it sort of
mhm,
evolves into something else, and then by the end of it, it's completely different movie. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
um, it had, I think it was a little bit tricky because the two leads, looked kind of similar
yes, they
at the
did,
start,
yeah,
especially when they're girls, and it flips between past, present, and maybe somewhere in between as well, which was fine. And then it sort of just shifts into gear when there is that sort of act of revenge, um,
yes,
which kind of blew me away. It's a real sort of like stopping moment, going,
yeah,
okay, well, that's, you're not going to go any further than that. Oh, yep, you are. Oh, no, you're going to go worse. Okay, cool.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I think you know what I mean when I talk about that. Talking about the houses with this one, but yeah, and then sort of had that interesting twist, and again took it to another level with just what sort of film it was.
yeah,
Um, and I thought, okay, this is interesting, but then they sort of start to incorporate the it's a spoiler, I guess, but with the they sort of show you the reasons behind what's been going on,
yeah,
why why it's all been happening.
that's right.
and that's, you know, okay, I understand that's the premise, that's interesting, but then once they sort of make that reveal, the points then kind of labored a bit, not to the point of torture, but it does sort of go on. And the frustrating thing is in the film is it keeps dipping to black. And so I'm like,
Yes.
oh, is this the end? Oh no, okay. More of the same. Okay, dipping to black. And I feel like that's deliberate because I
Yeah.
feel like it's not shot like that, but it almost feels like, you know, someone dipping out in and out of consciousness.
100%. Yeah.
And yeah, you're just trying to work out a purpose behind it all. So it's actually, I'm starting to like it more talking about it to you now.
Mm.
But I remember at the time I was probably because I'm still processing half of what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be a hard one to recommend to someone, I think, because of obviously the nature of it, and it's very severe and very violent.
Hmm.
Um, and I think for me, I think it's just my misunderstanding of the term martyr. Like I thought a martyr was more someone who was more like self-sacrifice or did something willingly for the betterment of others, which I don't think is the definition, but that's my understanding of it anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas these people are, you know, obviously made to do things. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like I feel like I've kind of ticked a box of something I hadn't really seen before.
Yes.
Uh, but you know, it's not something I'd be jumping back on to rewatch anytime soon. But it was, yeah, it was interesting. I think the sort of the lead actress were really good. They
Yeah, she was. Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
sort of formed that bond and that friendship, which was great because one of them was obviously had been through severe trauma, and the way she was consoled by her friend and they'd gone through similar things is yeah, it's a really nice sort of bond they had. But then, you know, how far can you push that bond? Um, oh yeah, and it was like creepy as, you know, fuck with the woman, like the naked woman running around, and you know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah.
Because you're not really sure what's going on at that point either when that happens, and like, is
Mm,
it you feel like it is happening, or is
yeah,
it? You know?
yeah. And in the hindsight, you can sort of
Yeah.
reflect and go, that was interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, no, look, that's always been my aim for these segments because I kind of want to make you watch stuff that's like different, right? And
yeah,
that's something that I always look for in films. So like now I feel like I should have prefaced this because I actually don't like torture porn films. So like I
no,
find them
me neither.
I find them really, really hard to watch,
Yeah,
which is why I felt like um I needed to go there with this one because of all of any of those films. This one for me has a lot of commentary around it
mm,
and makes it actually interesting to watch. Um, and also like yeah, just the whole trauma kind of thing that resonates and ripples throughout. And this is why like even the in and out of consciousness thing that you're talking about, every time we regain consciousness as a viewer, we're experiencing another ripple of this traumatic event that's then occurring, but we're going
mm,
another level out. Um, or even like we're going in reverse, we're going to the epicenter of what the ripple is, so you're slowly going inwards to reveal what it is that's at its center, and then you get this whole kind of martyrdom thing. So I know you were talking about the idea of what a martyr is, and I concur with what you're saying, but there's a lot of that being played around with this kind of idea of sacrifice behind this. And it's in order to sacrifice yourself you become a martyr. But who is the martyr in this? Is this Anna, the one that's the lead kind of girl that goes through it all, or is it actually the viewers who are witnessing it because they become martyrs of the experience that we have had to endure? And in order
mm.
to do that, then that's where that comes from. So I
Yeah,
think
fair enough.
and I think that's where the term martyrs actually comes from, in the plural, not the singular, because if you watch the film through its entirety, you'd be forgiven to go, well, hold on, there's only one real, like, are they trying to say one martyr? Then where's the martyrs coming? So the idea that it's the collective at the end that have come to bear witness to
Yeah,
sacrifice, they're the ones that become the martyrs in order to pass on the message or whatever the message is. And we don't even know what the message is because we're denied that.
yeah,
The only
yeah.
one person hears it, and
Mm,
without giving spoilers away, they are unable to tell whatever it is down the track because of the way it's the story unfolds. So I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot there, and yes, it's hard viewing, and yes, I've now seen it twice and probably one more too many than I would have liked. But I wanted to go there and throw that down there. So look, here's the key thing though. So what we're gonna do, like we've thrown it down, we've discussed these. I like this idea as a segment, and Nick and I definitely want to come back and look at some more. But if we're gonna quickly look at Eden Lake and Martyrs, what are your thoughts out on there? Have you seen either of these films? Do you have a favorite over the other? Do you think one film is better than the other? And it's hard to do that because I guess I have gone with one that's quite extreme and might prove hard viewing. But maybe you do find, like myself, found that this one had something to say a bit more than Eden Lake did. Who knows? But look, either way, enjoyed the approach and appreciated you, as I said, throwing down the gauntlet and one of our first, well, a first segment for us for the full moon sessions called Hidden Gems. Thanks very much, Nick.
No problem.
As I said, do stick around for what will be our final segment coming up in our playlist, and that is looking at fresh kills of the movies that are coming out in September. See you soon.